I'm Dana Denha, and you're watching FYI. March 24th, 2018 is a day to be remembered. It's a day where people young and old stood united for the greater good and for generations to come. Reporter Jill Andrews has more.
Protesters marched in cities throughout America for the safety of our children, marched for common sense gun laws, marched for peace, and they marched for our lives.
We are all here protesting to keep our kids safe and keep the rest of our citizens safe by implementing more gun control policies.
March for our lives. It's for everyone's lives, not just the kids, not just the adults. It's anybody who goes out in public, people who go to the malls, people who go to the movies, people who go to church, people who go to work, people who go to school. All of us deserve to be safe.
Today we're letting our voices be heard, that I feel like politicians are no longer listening to the majority, no longer listening to the people, they're listening to their pockets.
It's really nice to see that I am not the only person who feels this way. And I think that if the Founding Fathers could have imagined anything like a machine gun, if they could have imagined anything like somebody walking into a classroom and killing a bunch of kids, they would have rethought the Second Amendment.
Over 4,000 gathered in Ann Arbor alone to fight for change.
It could have been us just as easy as it was them at Parkland. They went to school on a regular day and 14 of them didn't get to go home. So even if you think it'll never affect you, it can.
We are meant to live life as a community, meant to live life together. And as we become an individualized society, we're going to keep having these problems. So to go against that and to come together all in one big group with a shared goal, a shared purpose, all with like the hopes of keeping people safe, come on, it's amazing.
The education of our children.
Stay tuned, and we'll be back shortly with more news and information. The largest student organization at the University of Michigan is on a mission to help children in need by raising funds as they tap their toes to a beat. Dance Marathon has university students working hard for some very deserving youngsters.
What we do is we raise funds and awareness for pediatric rehabilitation programs at Mott and Beaumont Children's Hospitals. Right here we're at VictorThon, which is our biggest event of the year. It's a 24-hour event.
VictorThon is 24 hours of craziness. There's no sitting, no squatting, no kneeling. It's 24 hours of standing and dancing, and it's the most fun time you'll ever had. It's really hard. Sometimes you want to give up, but it's your teammates and your dancer captains and those that are there to cheer you on.
Around hour 16 or 17, your feet are really hurting, you're starting to lose everything, and then you just find that one person, and then you think of your kid who's going to inspire you and inspire you to push on, and we do it for the kids. That's all we do it for.
The 24 hours of standing is a chance to really feel what does it mean to push yourself beyond your personal comfort zone. Individuals with disabilities, to be successful, have to push themselves beyond their comfort zone. And these students here get a chance to lean on each other, to help someone when they're feeling down, and to be helped by each other.
Dance Marathon to me is a dream come true. It's a dream come true for the kids, it's a dream come true for the families, and it's a dream come true for all the dancers and the people that help support it. We provide an experience for families that can't afford rehabilitation services, and we help give children the childhood they deserve.
Thank you for raising money for my hearing aids. Thank you for raising money for the ability for me to walk as a child when I was 2. And thank you for just everything you guys have given me with your great organization.
Our four-legged friends love to get out of the house, smell the fresh air, and go for a brisk walk or run. Learn more about dog licensing, leash laws, and more in this month's City Roundup in 60.
Hey guys, my name is Matt Morrow with the City Clerk's Office, and today we're going to talk about dog licensing, dog parks, and Ann Arbor's leash laws. So dog licensing is extremely important, not only because it's state law, but it's also regulated by local ordinances. So Ann Arbor provides 3 different options in 1, 2, and 3-year intervals based on the rabies vaccination expiration date. Moving on from there, if you want access to one of these wonderful parks, you're going to need a dog park pass. For Swift Run, it's going to cost $35. Olson and Broadway can come together at $15, and that leaves All City at $45. In regards to the leash law, when the animal is outside in an open area such as lifts, it needs to be on the leash. However, inside one of these gated areas, the animal is free to roam. And if you have any questions, please feel free to contact us at our phone number, 734-794-6140. Or for additional information, please go to www.a2gov.org.
As a society, we have a tendency to judge people on their differences instead of accepting or even celebrating the individuals we are. The documentary film Me the Other explores our differences by focusing on 12 university students living in Washtenaw County. Joining me is one of those students, Hussain Haider. Welcome to the show.
Hi Dana, thank you.
So why don't you tell me, can you tell me a little bit about Me the Other, what it's about and how you got involved?
Yeah, so the movie Me the Other is sort of a grassroots project that started up about 7 to 8 months ago with people involved in New York as well as in Michigan as well. And they thought, hey, maybe we can tell a cool story, success stories of several students in the Washtenaw County and also make them really diverse and sort of expose people to different stories. And so that's how it started. One of the co-producers, Dr. Shahrazad Mirafzali, she was very involved in the, in the conception of the project and in the movie itself. And so she happens to be an instructor at the University of Michigan School of Dentistry, where I happen to be a 4th-year student. And so the connection was there. And she said, hey, I know about your story, and we'd like to just come have you audition and see what we can do. So I went in and not really knowing much about the project or what it was going to be like, and just kind of answered some questions. And a month later, I got the email saying, hey, we want you in the movie. And then since then, it's just, to be perfectly honest, not knowing too much about the project, but learning about it as the project developed. And, I got to tell my story, and hopefully that kind of inspires other immigrants looking for inspiration and people who haven't dealt with immigrants or haven't had that kind of exposure, for them to at least just get some exposure. And my story is just one of 12 stories being told in the movie, so it just ended up being a really cool project.
So can you tell us a little bit more about your story of immigration? I actually come from, my father's an immigrant. Yeah. My mom isn't. He married after he got here, but it's similar to you. My dad was about 14 when he came.
Yeah, that's amazing, because I coincidentally came here when I was 13.
Yeah.
So my story kind of starts in Pakistan, which is where I was born. And at the time, we in that country filled with a majority of Sunni Muslims, we were a family that was that was mainly Shia Muslim. And so for the most part, the country doesn't have any issues with that. But this is also the time in early 2000s and late 90s that there started to develop these groups of people, small groups of people that were targeting Shia Muslims in the country, especially successful ones. And so my dad, being a physician, became an easy target, and it took basically a cousin of his who was also a physician who was shot and murdered outside of his clinic after receiving multiple death threats for a while. And so we said, okay, we need to find a way to get out of here. And so we found refuge in America, came here. In the process, by the time we got here, of course, my brother had turned over 21, and he wasn't able to come together with us, but the rest of the family did, me, my sister, and my parents. And so we moved to New Jersey, and then it was just, this was around 2004, 2005, and it was a big culture shock for us. Because unlike many other families, it wasn't like we came here for economic opportunity or the American dream in the more like common sense, but in another sense, we were still looking for a better life. and sort of that removal of that fear in your life of what life is going to be like in the future. So, you know, you find yourself here, and then then like any other immigrant, as you would know as well, then you gotta find yourself integrating in a new community. Then, of course, being from a Muslim country, coming with a Muslim of a name as Hussain, has a lot of negative connotations as well, and so fighting prejudice and fighting discrimination along the way. I mean, I've had a lot of ups, but I've also had some downs, and so this movie kind of delves into that a little bit. And like I said, it's at the end of the day, it's a success story because I found myself trying to find a balance between the roots, where I come from, but also molding myself into a new personality that I was going to be in this new country. And it took years to sort of get to that hybrid of a personality and an identity. But by the time I would say I started dental school, or by the time I finished undergrad, I was just starting to get there. And then I took every opportunity that was out there for me to be successful and to integrate in the community. And the movie talks about this in the fact that the sort of the culmination or the peak of that was when during the third year of dental school at University of Michigan, I ended up getting elected as the student council president of the school. So that was kind of a big change from starting at the lowest point of the social order, just getting here as an immigrant, to finally being at such a fine institution in a professional school, and then becoming the president and the representative of the whole student community at the school. It was just something that in the moment I just did it, and then reflecting back on it, I said, wow, like where, you know, looking back to when I got here as a middle schooler, it's just such a huge change. So that's kind of the gist of the story. And like I said, that's just mine, and I think mine is a good story, but there are so many other more inspirational stories that are out there of immigrants doing bigger and better things. Mine just happens to be the one that gets talked about in this particular movie.
All right, well, we're going to just take a quick look at the trailer to kind of get an idea of what some of the other people's stories are. So let's take a look at the trailer for Meet the Other.
How do you explain to someone that someone else matters? It's hard. He was like younger than me, and like I was a cashier and he was a bagger, so it was just kind of like, I mean, he was really friendly and stuff like that, but I never thought twice. He told me almost immediately. He wanted to make sure that it was very clear that I knew his situation.
Before you even said one word, you fit the stereotypic mold, right?
You're bound to feel like the other where everyone else seems to be equal. And that is not fair.
It doesn't? Sorry. Someone who doesn't have a place anywhere.
Right away, I was just in a totally different world.
People looked at me as if I were different.
And my entire life changed.
People intend to make me uncomfortable, to intimidate me.
I had a sense of, well, God loves everybody but me.
And you start questioning all your beliefs. So it's kind of in that moment, I was just like, if I can't even handle like salad dressing, how am I going to handle all the other stuff that's going to come up in life?
I'm not a very angry person, but sometimes I do ask God, like, why do all of these things happen at once?
Kind of hard for me because I've never spoken to anyone about this.
I feel like I'm just like anyone else, but I'm not.
Why do we have to argue that we matter? We should all just believe we matter.
We're back with Hussain Haider, and he just filled us in on his story from Meet the Other. And I'd like to know a little bit more about your story. You said you came here when you were 13. Could you speak the language already?
So at the time, yeah, actually. So I was lucky enough where my parents had me in an English Urdu school back in Pakistan in Karachi, and so I did have like a background on grammar and all those things. Of course, I had a very thick accent, which I lost over time. But yeah, luckily I was fortunate enough that I did know English coming in. Yeah.
And you talked about being a Muslim. Was it hard coming to America and going to like a regular school and being a Muslim?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously post 2011, 2001.
Yeah, because you came, what, 3 years later,
yeah, so we
2004,
came
so
pretty
it was
fresh.
pretty new.
And of course, being in New Jersey, so close to where everything happened, ground zero, now, given that the East Coast is still fairly diverse and it's nice in that sense, but there are still barriers that you have to overcome. I also didn't have the luxury of a very sort of subtle Muslim name. I had a very obvious Muslim name, and but what I ended up finding out was I had a lot of questions about the beliefs that I held after getting here. So growing up in a Muslim country, you just sort of take everything for granted.
Yeah.
Then you come here and then you question your beliefs all of a sudden, and so that was a beautiful path and a journey for me, because then it allowed me to learn more about the belief systems that I had, the religion that I had, and find answers, then come up with more questions and then find more answers. And it honestly made me more of a stronger person in my beliefs and in my views as well, and then finding a balance in the two as well. So sort of took every challenge, and then what I ended up doing was, in the long run, I realized this is my identity, and I'm going to try to represent my country and my religion in the best way possible. So then I found, pride in introducing myself as Hussain, because I said, well, then immediately they'll know this guy is Muslim, and then I can put a good impression on him. And so I kind of used that instead of being a negative thing, just as something positive that I could use every day. And so puts a little bit of added pressure of being a good, upstanding citizen at all times, but it's something, at least you're working for something bigger.
Yeah.
And there's some fun in that too.
So let's talk about actually making the film. Were you able to meet some of the other people in the film? They're all local, and what did you maybe learn about yourself making this?
Right, I actually didn't know any of the cast members coming in, but we had a big cast reveal party, so I met them, and you talk a little bit here and there, and you get to know some of their stories and why they're part of the movie. But then we had a director's cut screening back in November, and that's when we really saw all the stories come together.
Yeah.
And there was a moment where the movie ended and we got a standing ovation from a crowd of just family and friends, about 150, 200 people. And then the cast members just all got up, went to the front, and just had a massive, big group hug. And in that moment, we knew that we connected on some level as being part of this project together. And there are some really inspirational stories in there. There are stories of a gay couple, a transgender, who went through a lot. There are a couple stories of kids on part of DACA, and that being something that's a current topic. There are other stories of born and raised, Michiganders, and there are stories of other immigrants as well. So a very cool combination of different stories, and that's why it's called Me the Other.
Why do you feel like Washtenaw County was a good location to pick to shoot something like this?
Yeah, I mean, starting from being a U of M student, go Blue, I have to say it's one of the most diverse campuses out there. And then Ann Arbor as a city just provides so much, and then on a large scale, Washtenaw County, same thing extends there. The community here is just so open and so diverse that the kind of stories that this movie was looking for were here. In fact, the director is from New York, and so last night we had the big screening, the world premiere for the movie, and he went up to the front and introduced himself, and he said, "Hey, I'm from New York." So I thought to myself, I come from the most diverse place in the whole world. Why would I go to Washtenaw County, Ann Arbor, to shoot this thing? And then he said, well, after being 8 months of being involved in this movie, I know why I'm here. This place is amazing. And even for him, coming from New York, he saw the value in this place and how diverse it is. So yeah, I think the cast members were just awesome. And then judging off the people that came yesterday, I mean, we had about 1,600 people show up to the world premiere yesterday. It was sold out. And then you realize, wow, everybody from a 3-month-old baby to old people, everything in the middle. It wasn't just students, it wasn't just adults, it was everyone. And that goes to show you the kind of level that this community is at in Washtenaw.
All right, we're just about out of time, but if you want to tell people why they should take time out of their schedule and watch Meet the Other.
Yeah, I think it's so important these days more than anything else, with everything that's going on in the world and in our country, to expose ourselves of different stories. I think for me, one thing I realized is people only just fear things or hate things because they just don't know much about it. And so the minute you learn, the minute you start to appreciate and understand, and the fear and the hate goes away. And so Meet the Other is a movie where you expose yourself to different stories, successes, downs, ups, and by the end of it, you hope that you know something more about these different people, and you have less fear of them, and you have less hate for them. And this movie's about love. So.
All right, well, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
For more on this and other CTN programs, visit a2gov.org/watchctn. Thanks for watching, and tune in next time to FYI.